This video is now in session, and today I want to talk about the 2020 US redistricting cycle. So I know I already did a video on this a little bit earlier on my Instagram account, Partisan Irony, but I want to just go a little more in depth into the control that both Republicans and Democrats would have in this redistricting cycle, because every single decade there is a census conducted that tabulates the population in each state, and as a result of that population, it redetermines the amount of seats that should be apportioned for each state. Now, this applies to both the electoral college map and the congressional district maps for the House of Representatives. So for the House of Representatives, that is 435 seats that will be, I guess, rearranged. And then in the electoral map, that's 538 electoral votes that will be arranged. So this is what the map currently looks like, and it will look drastically different from this come 2022 in that election. And we'll be able to know the new maps by most likely after July of this of 2021, and we'll see how gerrymandered it will be, because based on if you don't know already, the state legislatures and the governors are the ones that form the new maps, the new electoral and congressional district maps. So as a result, if a state like Oregon, who is gaining both one House seat and one electoral vote, so the state legislature is controlled by Democrats, both the House and the Senate. So they will draw the map, and then you have the governor, who is also Democratic, who will approve on that. So Democrats could try to gerrymander this map to make it more favorable to them. Right now they are 4 seats, but they could make these 4 seats more solid, because here Democrats have a 53% chance of winning the 5th district all the time, and then Democrats here have a 52% chance. They currently have both seats, but if they wanted to make both seats stronger for them, then they could gerrymander it so that they have an 83% chance of winning in this seat and an 83% chance of winning that seat. So that's what gerrymandering does. It mainly cracks the opposition party, and it packs the opposition party's votes. So for example, say you have 8 Republicans and 6 Democrats. So you could have I would say 3 Democrats on one, and then 2 Republicans in one district, and then you would have another 3 Democrats in another one, and then 2 Republicans in that one, and then from there you would give the final district to Republicans. So even though Democrats are in the minority, they have 2 House seats instead of just 1. So that's what gerrymandering does. And let's go on to the 2020 election in state legislatures and how that will impact the 2021 redistricting. So Democrats were very poised to flip a lot of state houses and state senates. They were poised to flip the Texas State House, as well as the Arizona State House and Senate. They were also poised to retain their own state legislatures like New Hampshire's. They were poised to get Montana's gubernatorial race. Yet none of this happened. Literally nothing changed in terms of who was in the majority, besides that Republicans actually took over the New Hampshire State Senate and the New Hampshire State House. So they now have possibility to gerrymander New Hampshire. Now, New Hampshire only has 2 seats, but that is very important for the state, for the House of Representatives, because right now Democrats have a 222 seat majority, and the majority needed is 218. So every seat at this point counts for Democrats. What Republicans can do for gerrymandering is they could try to make this map. Currently, this is what the map looks like. It's to promote highly competitive elections, but Democrats are able to have both House seats. But if Republicans wanted to gerrymander towards them, then they can use this system where they would gain 1 House seat. So that's what they can do in New Hampshire now. Now, in terms of who will actually have a control or have a say in state legislatures, let me just add a Republican column and a Democrat column. Red and custom colors, no alternate colors, dark red. And then we also have Democrats. This is who will be able to control the state redistricting processes. In some states, the state legislature doesn't even do the redistricting process. It is managed by either an independent commission or a politician commission. So these states include California, Washington, New Jersey, Hawaii, Montana. Montana is going to be gaining one House seat, so they now have 2 House seats. They will have 2 House seats, so that's what a commission is. It takes the power away from the parties, and generally that's a much better way of redistricting, but a lot of states don't do that, particularly Republican states. So let's talk about who controls what part of the process. So just saying this before we start, this is like the states that are gaining in House seats and electoral votes, and then the reds are the ones that are losing. So the darker the color, the more impactful it is. So New York is projected to lose 2 electoral votes. It's either New York losing 2 electoral votes / 2 House seats, or it's New York losing 1 House seat and electoral vote, and California losing 1 House seat and electoral vote. That still has to be decided by the census, but it could be either way. Nonetheless, it's not that good for Democrats. So this is what the map looks like. You have mainly the Sun Belt gaining in electoral votes and House seats. Now let's talk about which party controls which process. So Democrats have a control in Oregon. They also have controls in Nevada and New Mexico. And then let's do Republican. They have control of Utah as well as Wyoming and all of these states here. I'm just quickly going through. And then these 2 don't count because they're politician commissions. That said, Republicans could try to sway it towards them. I'm going to skip to filling out every single state. So this is what the map would look like in terms of who is in control of the redistricting process. Now, for some states, it's in bright yellow, mainly because there's only one House seat, which means that no one controls the process. And then for yellow seats or yellow states, it's either a politician commission controls it, an independent commission controls it, or it is a split between the gubernatorial positions, the state house, and the state senate control. So as you can see here, Republicans have a lot more control of this process than Democrats do. Republicans have 175 House seats in control of them that they can gerrymander, while Democrats only have 74 seats that they can gerrymander. As a result, Republicans will be much more in control of the next 10 years of the House of Representatives elections. This is what a scenario would look like if every state was gerrymandered to favor Republicans, and Republicans would have on average 264 seats, and there would be no way for Democrats to get a majority. Meanwhile, our current position is actually not that far off from the Republican gerrymander, mainly because the last time an election was held to decide the redistricting process, that was in 2010, and that was Obama's midterm, and he was the Democratic Party was hammered a lot by the Republican parties, and that's how we have a current map where Republicans have on average 234 seats and Democrats have 200 seats. So what can Democrats do with this? Well, this is what can Republicans do, because they are mostly in control. So this is the current boundaries of Florida. 10 seats are good for Democrats, 12 are for Republicans, and then you have 5 that are highly competitive. But if we go for each one, we can see that practically all of them, except for maybe 1, 2, and 3. So 2 of them for Republicans, 3 for Democrats. So 13 versus 15. So that's like the partisan breakdown of seats. It's the exact same map, but Republicans can gerrymander to make it more favored towards them. And as a result, Republicans would have they would have 19 seats, while Democrats would have 8 seats on average. So that is many more seats for Republicans. Just that alone, if you only gerrymander Florida, then Republicans would have control of the House, which is why it's so important that redistricting, that the Republican Party or the Democratic Party is in control of the state redistricting process, because it helps favor towards them. Now let's look at Illinois. Illinois is one state where Democrats actually have control of the redistricting process. Right now, Democrats on average should have they should have 12 seats, while Republicans on average should have 6 seats. But Democrats can gerrymander towards them, which would give Democrats 14 seats and Republicans just 4. So that's what a Democratic gerrymander does. That said, Democrats cannot gerrymander as many states, not as many states, but also not as many House seats, just because for a lot of states that were controlled by Democrats, they ceded control to an independent commission. Now, if we look at the most important states, Florida is one of the most important states for the redistricting process, as it is gaining 2 House seats, but the most important state for redistricting is Texas. Texas is gaining 3 House seats, and that's why Democrats really wanted to gain a lot of seats in the state House, because right now, or before the 2020 election, Republicans had a trifecta in Texas, which means they had the state House, the state Senate, and the governor's position in Texas. So Democrats wanted a say in this redistricting process in Texas, because Texas will become a swing state. So as a result, Democrats campaigned really hard in Texas, but they didn't gain enough House seats, and as a result, Republicans still have a trifecta in all 3 parts of the 3 sections of the government, and as a result, they have control over this redistricting process. Right now, this current system is pretty gerrymandered towards Republicans. That said, Republicans can gerrymander it even more towards them, especially since they now have 3 additional House seats to control. So currently speaking, Democrats have on average 11 seats, while Republicans have 23. Now, I know that Democrats have more in Texas right now, but this is just on average. But if Republicans wanted to gerrymander it towards them, then Democrats would have 11 seats and Republicans would have 25 seats. So while it doesn't seem like a lot, if you add on 3 more seats, then Texas alone, like Florida, if it is gerrymandered, will change the control of the House of Representatives. So this is mainly this is just how redistricting works and how it can favor towards them. We saw this in North Carolina before. 2010, they heavily gerrymandered towards them using partisan gerrymandering, and that was ruled unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. So, racial gerrymandering, not partisan gerrymandering. So they did racial gerrymandering, and that was unconstitutional by the Supreme Court because it violated the 14th Amendment. But afterwards, Tom Hoffler, who was the designer of this map, then did a partisan gerrymandering, and the state Supreme Court ruled against partisan gerrymandering, and that's why we now have a different map. So Democrats, unfortunately, they don't have much say in this process, but they can go to the state Supreme Courts in order to get what they want, but in some cases it won't even work out for them. So ultimately, do not be surprised if Republicans take back the House of Representatives in 2022 just because of gerrymandering. So that's the end of this video, and I'll see you in the next one.